Welcome back to another MOTOBOB video where today we're going to be talking about Honda's brand new NT1100. Now this is basically their Africa Twin adventure bike, but they've transformed it into a sort of sports touring crossover type thing, and I think it looks pretty awesome. So in this video we're going to go over the 13 key features that you need to know about. But before we get started, a quick thank you to my channel sponsors Speedo Angels. Look, it can be super expensive to replace a TFT screen if it gets damaged. But fortunately, Speedo Angels make these little dash protectors. They only cost a few quid and they could save you a fortune. They already have a product for the Africa Twin and I assume it'll fit this bike as well. Links are in the description along with a 20% discount code. Alright, so let's start with the engine. It's pretty much the same as the Africa Twin, so a 1084cc parallel twin with a 270 crank for that nice V-twinny sound and feel. Power and torque figures aren't absolutely amazing. It's 100 horsepower at 7,500 RPM and 104 Newton meters of peak torque at 6,250. But don't underrate it. It's super smooth and punchy and torquey and it just has such a nice feel. After trying both the Africa Twin with the manual box and the DCT version last year, I'd happily put loads of miles in on this engine. In the NT1100 it does get a couple of tweaks, so the intake duct length and the exhaust internals are both tuned to produce smooth, powerful acceleration married to relaxed highway cruising. So in this bike it should even be that little bit better. On top of that, there is a DCT or dual clutch transmission option. Now this is Honda's, unique selling point. It essentially allows you to ride the bike as an automatic, or you can put it in manual and use the buttons on the switchgear. I talked about it loads in yesterday's video about the Rebel 1100, so there's a link in the description if you want to know more. But basically it's super convenient, really easy to ride, and I've always said that I think it feels most at home on the Goldwing. It just really suits that laid back touring style of riding, and so it should be very well suited to the NT1100 as well. Onto the chassis, and again it's very similar to the Africa Twin, so it gets the same steel semi-double cradle frame and the same bolt-on aluminium subframe. Now it does get a slightly sharper geometry, that'll give it more of a road focus and sharpen up the handling, and you also get less travel in the suspension. It doesn't need all that height. So Showa provides the 43mm upside down fork and the shock, and both of them have 150mm of travel. Both of them also get preload adjustability with a hydraulic adjuster at the rear with a remote knob. On a bike like this you might want to do sporty solo riding, but it is really built for two-up touring with loads of luggage, and so it's great to see that adjustability front and rear. The remote knob for the rear is also a nice feature so that you don't have to get any tools out if you want to make quick changes. Brakes wise, again pretty similar to the Africa Twin, so it gets 4-pot radially mounted Nissin calipers on 3 10mm discs. Not super fancy, not Brembos or anything like that, but they are pretty good. Should be plenty enough stopping power for this bike. It's 238 kilograms for the manual version or 248 for the DCT. Look, it's not a lightweight, it's about 12 kilograms more than the Africa Twin, but it's not that bad either, especially when you set it against the bigger touring bikes like the BMW R1250 RT. Another nice feature of this bike is the seat height, 820mm, so it really is in that middle ground. It's not super low and it's not particularly tall either. For a tourer, you do want a fairly commanding riding position. You want to be sitting up and looking over the traffic, but also with a passenger and luggage you want to be able to get both feet down if possible, and so yeah, I think they've got this one right. They say that it's a wide thick seat material that offers luxurious expanse for two, and there's also a substantial grab rail for the passenger, which is always welcome in my experience. So long range touring is the name of the game, and there are some nice features as standard for this sort of riding. Cruise control like the Africa Twin is standard, that's an absolute must for me on a tourer, and heated grips are standard as well. It also gets an adjustable windscreen with 5 positions, so it's nice to be able to put it down if you do want to feel a little bit more wind at lower speeds in the city, cool yourself down, but also the ability to put it right up on the motorway, especially when it's cold and wet. It's also got some upper deflectors to push the air around your shoulders and some lower deflectors to push it around your legs as well, so I'm expecting this bike to have really good wind protection. Definitely something I'll be looking for when I get a chance to review one. Another super important feature for a tourer is a decent tank size and range, and this gets a 20.4 litre tank. At the quoted consumption figures of 5 litres per 100 kilometers, that should give you about 250 miles on a tank. Let's say you're a law-abiding citizen and you do 70 on the motorway. That's over 3.5 hours in the saddle at that speed, so I think you'll be ready for a stop. Now, one of my favourite features on the Africa Twin and the Goldwing is the CarPlay and Android Auto integration. Essentially, you plug in your phone to the USB socket and it gives you a car-friendly or bike-friendly interface. I use it all the time in my car, and whenever I borrow a press bike that has it, I use it as well. Dedicated navigation apps like Google Maps and Waze, in my experience, are way better than the built-in nav apps that you get in cars and on bikes. Not something that everyone's going to be bothered about, but for those who like their tech, it's definitely a good feature. So not only do you have that big TFT screen at the top, but there's a smaller LCD display beneath it, and that gives you the basic riding information like speed and gear position, so that you can still see them while CarPlay or Android Auto takes over the main screen. If you're not bothered about all that stuff, the TFT display is still nice and big and clear, and this version gets 3 layouts. So gold, which gives you all of the numeric and riding mode information. Silver kind of simplifies it a little bit and just gives you the speedo and the rev counter. And then bronze is super simple, so just the rev counter, and you use the smaller display for the speed. And I think generally they've pitched the electronics quite nicely on this bike. There are 3 riding modes, so urban, rain and tour, and 2 user configurable slots as well. You've got 3 levels of Honda's selectable torque control, so that's traction control, wheelie control as well, engine braking adjustability, ABS of course, full LED lighting all round, self-cancelling indicators, and their emergency stop signals which flash the indicators when it detects emergency braking. There's a USB socket too, and an accessory socket for heated gear and sat-nav and the like. And so yeah, it's not super cutting edge, there's no IMU or lean sensitive rider aids, but realistically, do you need that stuff on a bike like this? And it seems like they've focused on delivering decent standard equipment rather than electronics that you might not necessarily need. So on top of everything we've already listed, you get slim panniers, 33 litres on the left, 32 on the right, as standard, and you also get a centre stand. Now luggage is usually an accessory, and it adds at least $1,000 to the cost of the bike. And a centre stand, that comes up in the comments all the time that people are miffed that bikes don't come with it as standard, so that's definitely going to please a few people. There are still plenty of accessories. There's a quick shifter, for example. I've tried it out on some of their other bikes and it really is pretty good. And then you've got a few different packs. So the urban pack comes with a 50 litre top box, an inner bag, comfort backrest, and a 4.5 litre tank bag. The touring pack comes with rider and pillion comfort seats, comfort pillion foot pegs, and some fog lights. And then the voyage pack with all of the above from the urban and touring. Loads of features, loads of great options in the accessories catalogue. Now for a couple of more superficial things. I mean, functionally, they've routed the exhaust low, and that's helped to keep that pannier volume up. But also, they've tuned the sound for a pleasing low RPM throb. Now, the Africa Twin is a really nice sounding bike. And so this one, the NT1100, with even more tune for that low RPM throb, it should be pretty good as well. As for the overall styling, I mean, if you're expecting it to look like some of their crossover sports touring concepts, it might be a little disappointing. But that's just because those concepts look so good. If you look at this from just a standalone perspective, I mean, I quite like it. It's sort of like a big XADV. The panniers definitely add to that sort of like purposeful touring look. And you know, it's definitely got that kind of Honda design language running through it. It looks super classy to me, and I think that's what a lot of people will want from a tourer. The only thing I will say is the color options where you've got white, grey and black. Personally, I think it'd have looked good in their sort of trademark red, but I'm sure they've done their research on what sells. Now onto the price, £11,999 for the manual box, £12,999, so £1,000 more for the DCT. It's hard to compare the DCT to other bikes because no one else has it, so let's take that non-DCT price. It seems pretty competitive to me. I mean, there are some really well-priced bikes out there that will always be difficult to beat, but also there are some similarly featured tourers that are substantially more expensive. What I like about this bike is it seems like they've taken a competitive price point and they've sort of ignored like giving it silly horsepower figures for the headlines. It doesn't have that cutting edge tech that, like I say, I don't think you'll use, but they've just packed it with actual meaningful practical features. Cruise control makes a huge difference on the motorway. Center stand for lubing the chain and checking your tires and all that kind of thing. Great feature. Luggage as standard fit. A good 5-position adjustable windscreen, adjustable preload on the fork for setting the bike up properly. It's not the most sexy tourer, but I think the features that it packs have been really shrewdly selected. As always, I'd love to know what you think though. Let me know down in the comments. What do you think of the looks, the price, the features? Let me know what you think. And if you're new here and you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe and I'll see you next time.